Welcome, everyone. Thank you for attending this evening's Lewis County Real Property Tax Foreclosure Bidder Seminar. We have a lot of good information planned for you this evening, and the webinar will take about an hour to go through. I'm sure that we're going to answer almost every question that you can think of that you're probably wondering about. But we want to offer the opportunity for you to be able to type some questions into the chat area. The first thing that we're going to suggest for you is that if you do have a phone or you know how to take screenshots on your desktop or laptop, if that's how you're watching this webinar, that you should get ready to capture some of the screen images if they're important to you. If you find that this is an interesting slide and you'd like to refer to it later, it's probably a good idea to grab your phone. And I would suggest holding it in the sideways or landscape position because it'll capture the entire screen. Tonight with me, my name is Frank Peterzak. I'm one of the auctioneers and associate broker at Absolute Auction and Realty. And with me tonight is Jen Gableman, our principal and also broker, company broker and auctioneer. And Jen will be working on the back side. So if you have questions that you want to type into the chat area, you can do that. You can look for us on a variety of social media, AAR Auctions, NYS Auctions, and then you can look for us on Facebook and Pinterest and YouTube. We like to post images of what we see when we're out in the field doing work. We like to let you see what we have coming up for auction that might not be fully prepared for the website yet. And then I like to just post things on Instagram that I see as I travel around New York State and just share those with you. So if you do have questions, type them into the chat box, but I'll probably say, just hold off a bit and see where we're heading. We want to give you a really full explanation as to how these properties became part of the auction, what you should do in researching these properties, and then of course getting prepared for the auction and how that all works. So, enjoy yourself this evening. First thing is this auction will be, I'm on the wrong one, I'm watching on my laptop. This auction will be closing bidding beginning on Thursday, November 5th, starting at 10 o'clock with the first parcel in the auction. I think I saw today that bidding will actually open up, if it has not already, to those who are registered so that you could begin bidding now if you'd like. And I think I saw a notice about that today from the office. If not, it's letting you know when that will begin. And that's for people who are fully registered, and we'll go over registration in a little bit. We're going to sell a variety of things to you. We have homes like this, which we actually went inside and took some interior video and photos. This year, because of COVID-19, we can't actually assemble and show you property in person. So our field team went out and did that for you. And we did a good job of getting some good interior pictures and video to let you see what the overall condition is inside. And we've tried to be as fair as we can and transparent as we can and show you the good things and also any ugly things that we may have seen along the way. So we have homes. We also have this kind of mixed property where it's kind of a large residence looking structure along with a kind of a commercial facility. We also have land. There's a few pieces of land in this auction. And I think we have a mother-in-law cabin too in the back of one of those properties. Sorry about that if my mother-in-law is listening in. This one doesn't have heat or air conditioning, so the in-laws won't stay long. Anyway, we just want to remind you the closing of bidding is going to be on Thursday, November 5th, starting at 10 a.m. Generally, these lots are going to be up and run for approximately 2 to 3 minutes. And we'll show you what that looks like in a little bit, but they will start closing as you stop bidding. And that's how it works. So the auction will not take long. Be prepared to bid, know where you want to go. And we're going to try and help you figure some of that out tonight. Part of what we need to talk about, not only the overview of this whole process, but the real property tax law, Article 11, which is what Lewis County and many other counties use around New York State to facilitate this foreclosure action against the properties who did not receive real property tax payments. And then there's a public auction by law that must occur. That's how these properties are written into the statute. If you really want to know more about the process, you should actually look at the law itself. And people say, gee, why do I have to pay taxes on this land? Or, it's just a vacant lot. Because taxes, it's the law in New York State, and that's how New York State operates. And more importantly, that's how local municipalities, counties, and local towns and villages are able to fund themselves through real property tax in part. If you really want to read about this law in depth, you should Google NYS RPTL Article 11, and then you'll get to the New York State Senate Gov site, and you'll be able to see exactly what that looks like. So if you Google that and click the link, you'll get to the Senate page. And as long as it says New York State Senate, Article 11, you can start clicking around in there. I've downloaded Article 11. I think it's about 38 pages of law. It's interesting reading. It's the entire step-by-step process that the counties must follow in order to commence and finalize the foreclosure action so that it can be sold to you at public auction. The good news is that if the Article 11 steps are followed properly and completely, at the end of the bidding process, you're getting a property that is free and clear of any recorded liens, and it's yours. It comes on a quit claim deed, so it's your property. And I'm going to explain more of that as we go along. I just want to give you the highlight, though, where you can get information to learn about this law yourself. So in the foreclosure process, New York State has said that there's a 2 to 3 year delinquency, tax delinquency period that's allowable before the county can take title to the property and then sell it at public auction. Why the difference here, 2 to 3 years? 3 years, they allow for agricultural property, and I think that's an anticipation of maybe a bad year of weather and crops, etc. So they give agricultural property 3 years, minimum delinquency before they foreclose. Everything else is on a 2-year delinquency cycle. So whether that's single-family homes, multifamily, commercial, vacant land, recreational property, what have you, the law says after 2 years, the county can foreclose. Now, by local law, some counties have established an extra period of time. Some are on a 3-year and 3-4 year cycle. Some are on 4 or 5 year cycle. But we've been doing this work now over 20 years in New York State. And what we're finding is that most of the counties we work with, and we work with 25% of the counties in New York State, most of them are going now with this 2-3 year period. We'll talk about tax bills, the public notices that must occur according to Article 11, the title searches for interested parties, what's a 90-day notice, and then that final judgment. So first, let's talk about tax bills and notices. Everybody that owns real estate in New York State gets a tax bill. And you may get several. You may get a county town bill, you may get a village bill, you might get a school tax bill, but you will get a tax bill. And even if you don't get a bill, you're required to pay the tax that is due and owing. So people have already attempted to litigate against a variety of counties. Hey, I didn't get the bill, it didn't show up in the mail, so I don't have to pay. Save yourself the lawyer fees. You're going to lose that case 100% of the time. The courts have decided emphatically it is just your responsibility to pay tax no matter what. When you get your tax bill, it'll, the lower right-hand corner of your screen, it tells you what's due on this property, but you notice on the lower left side, they give you some extra time to pay your county and town real property tax bill. Yes, there's penalties and interest for doing that, but no county, no town, no village wants to foreclose on real estate. So they give you plenty of opportunity to do this. And at some point, though, they absolutely must collect that revenue. So they're going to actually go ahead and foreclose. Once the foreclosure action commences, because you're heading to the 2 years of delinquency, part of the law says that the notice must be performed publicly. So typically the notice appears in one of 2 of your official countywide newspapers. And generally speaking, this appears in the legal section, not something maybe that you read out of habit, but that's where the initial list appears. Let me zoom in a little bit. This one happens to be from Orange County, but they all look kind of the same. First of all, up at 11 o'clock, if you notice on the screen, it says that this matter of tax lien is Article 11. So that lets you know in the legal notice that every property in this auction that will eventually be foreclosed on will follow the explanation that I'm trying to give you tonight. And there's good information in there for you to know about, and that's why we're doing this bidder seminar. Now, I'm not a lawyer, neither is Jen or anyone on our staff, so we're not here trying to teach you the law. What we're really trying to do is educate you on the steps that you should be taking to prepare for making a purchase at Lewis County Tax Auction. So on the left side is that notice. On the right side, you see this kind of numerical list of numbers and names. What does this all mean? The first column on the left is the county code and the town code. And then the semicolon gives you the section block and lot number of the properties that are being foreclosed on. And on the right side, that list of names, those are the titled owners as they appear in the public record. Now, let me just go back a second. Sorry about that. In order for the county to create the list of foreclosed properties and notify people, they have to do a title search. That title search for interested parties, meaning anybody who has an interest in this party should know about and receive notice of the impending foreclosure. So the best way to do that is to search the county clerk's records and look at the recorded owners. They're also looking for anyone who has a liened interest or a lien interest in this property for maybe monies that were owed through judgment or other reasons. And keep in mind, only the recorded liens are valid. So if we're talking about Lewis County property, only the liens that are recorded in the Lewis County Clerk's office are valid. And that's what you're going to be looking for, just like the county did, because you want to make sure that the county notified all interested parties, not only the owner of the property, which you assume they notified, but lien holders, so that they have an opportunity to protect their lien. I'll talk about more of that in just a minute. How do you do a title search if you're going to do that? One, you can hire an abstractor or a title company to conduct the search for you, and you should expect to pay for that. The other thing you can do is hire an attorney to do that. An attorney would be happy to do it. They're probably going to farm that work off to a title company. Or you can do it yourself. If you intend to do it yourself, you search by the former owner's last name, first name of the owners who are on the deed, and then you want to list, by looking at the lien and judgments that have been filed against them, all the recorded liens and judgments that apply to that property through that individual. You also want to make sure that you're checking the IRS liens. So there's lien and judgment books, there's IRS recordings, and you're going to want to make sure that you check all of that and make a list. Once you have your list, or once you receive your title report, if you paid to get one done, then you're going to want to verify with the county treasurer's office who they served notice to. It's very important that every lien holder was notified. If they're notified, they have a chance to protect their lien. If they do protect their lien, then likely the property wouldn't be here in the auction. At the same time, if a lien holder was not notified, their lien may still be good. And that may become an issue for you when you take title to the property. The beautiful thing about Article 11, the way the law was written, is that as long as the lien holders are notified and given an opportunity to protect their lien, once the judge signs title to the county, it's over. All those liens are wiped away relative to you, the new purchaser. It's a very strong way to buy real estate because it's free and clear of liens, as long as interested parties have been notified. So that's why we recommend that you conduct your own search so that you're aware. Now, this 90-day notice portion, that's the 90-day opportunity that the county notifies the interested parties, gives them a period of time to file an answer, and then if not, the county will proceed to final judgment. Final judgment, that means it goes before a judge who will review all the paperwork, the certifications, all of the things that go into this process, and then will grant title, actually through the treasurer or finance commissioner, grant title to all of the properties at once to the county. And it erases all recorded and notified lien holders' interests. Again, we're going to focus on making sure that they were notified. So once that happens, right, after this 2-3 year process takes place, the 90-day notice is over, the judgment is actually awards title to the county, that's when the county will finally contact us as an auction company and say, okay, we have our list, now your team can work on the list. So where can you find property? If you're looking for these types of properties, one thing you can do is just visit our website, AAR Auctions, or our affiliated site where we do tax foreclosure, which is NYS Auctions. You could look there at our calendar to see what auctions we have happening and coming up. And you can do that. If it's a county that we don't work with, we don't work with every county throughout the state, then you should just Google that county name and either do tax foreclosure auction or tax auction, or more simply, just go to the finance commissioner or treasurer's office of that county and ask them, hey, what are you doing with your tax foreclosed properties? And you'll find that some of them outsource this to 1 or 2 other auction companies that may do this work around the state, and some actually still do it themselves. So they conduct their own auctions. More and more, because of, especially right now, the pandemic situation and a need to have a very robust and accurate online bidding platform, we're getting calls. We actually got a call yesterday during the Sullivan tax auction by a county saying, hey, we need your system and we want to think about using you to do our auction. So it's a safe way to do auctions. It's a great way to conduct the auction. And as much as we all enjoy being in person to do this with you together, it's a good way to do the auctions this year. So Lewis County has their properties. They've been publicized now, and we're starting to head towards getting ready for you to be able to bid on these properties and actually do more diligence, more homework. How do you do that? Well, there are a lot of choices. You're right. I think we're down to about 13 properties in Lewis County, so it's not mind-boggling. You're not going to be like the young lady on the left. You're probably not going to be fatigued like the fella on the right, but there is a step-by-step process that you're going to want to do to make sure that you're aware of what you're bidding. At auction, it's reverse what you would normally do with your local real estate agent. At auction, you do all the homework up front so that the last thing you do is make your offer. And once you make your offer at auction, it's committed to a purchase and sale contract, and you're the buyer and it will close. So that's how things work, and it has to go that way. So we're going to talk about the buyer's due diligence, and we give you a lot of great information: assessor's reports, tax maps, deeds, and way to access deeds, lien information, and then of course you should also be thinking about your town, your village, and maybe even school if that's important to you. So with the assessor reports, and we always get these from the municipal website and we post them onto our website so you could look at them. This is where the assessor has entered into a statewide database a lot of great information about property. Let's zoom in a little closer. It doesn't matter that this is from a different county, they all appear in the same format. On the right side, you'll notice that this property is a 210 class code 1 family residence. And right above that is the section block and lot number, or what we call the tax map ID number, 2112. So you want to know, first of all, that you're looking at the assessment information for the correct property. And then you notice in the middle of that report, there's all kinds of good information. The square footage of the property, whether it has 2 or 3 stories, starts talking about the number of bedrooms, bathrooms. There's really a lot of great information in there. And if you go into the real property system for the county, you'll be able to access this yourself, and there may be other things that you can actually look into, like aerial photography and that kind of stuff. We already post quite a bit of this on our website, but if you want to really look for more, then you can certainly go back to the Lewis County site, take a look. Now, some of the tax maps that we show you come off of these full sheet maps, and if you're not used to looking at these things, it could be mind-boggling at first. You know, where is 2-112? So the first number 2 is the map section. So if you look at a full sheet map, it's in the lower right corner and it tells you this is section 2. So at least you know you're on the right map. The block is something they don't really teach you anywhere. The block is a section of the map that's in a circle, numbered circle. And sometimes there are more than 1 blocks on a map. So you're going to want to go to 2, section map, that's good. The block, that part of the map, and now you're going to actually want to find lot 12. And where is that? So you're going to have to take a closer look. Fortunately, I've zoomed in for you and circled it. There is the actual property that we're looking at, number 12. And we'll zoom in a little bit more, and there's good information there for you. This particular tax map tells you things like the amount of road frontage that it has, right? This property has 252.1 feet of road frontage. That's great. You know, we're heading to just a little shy of a football field's length worth of road frontage, and that's great. You're going to be able to get to this property easily. The tax map is also indicating the actual acreage there, 1.2 acres. So it's giving you good information. If you go back to the county website and start looking at this there, or using some of the tools that are on our website, you'll notice that there is on the county website, you'll see a tax map image like this. If you click the Google link, then click on satellite view, and satellite view will give you that aerial pictometry so that you can see what does this property look like from above. The really cool thing about either using this link that's on our website, if you scroll down to the bottom of each property, we typically have a Google Map link there for you, or you're doing it from the county site, is on the left, you'll notice send to your phone. You're going to want to click on that, enter your own cell phone number, and click send, and your phone will get a Google Map pin on a map that shows you exactly where this property is. And what do you do with that? You push the pin, and it opens up mapping and directions from wherever you're standing or seated. And it'll tell you how long it'll take to get there, and it'll also give you either turn-by-turn directions, or you could actually use this as a GPS and just follow it right to the property. One thing we've noticed over the years, and you may know too, is homes are pretty easy to find. Homes and buildings, they usually have a street number. But vacant land out in the middle of a rural area, not necessarily the easiest thing to find, especially small pieces. We put a sign on every property when we're out there doing signs and photos, but sometimes those signs get moved by interested parties, or they take them home with them as a souvenir, and then you're not going to know where the property is. So use the Google Map pin. It's a great way to get you to where you want to be. Another good resource, you're going to want to look at the deeds that are available. And now counties have deeds online, so you don't need to go into the county records room. Part of the assessor report that I showed you earlier lists the book and page. These are books stacked up. These are book numbers. So you're going to want to look for the book and then the page. And it'll have a copy of the deed right there for you. The deed has a lot of good information in it. You want to make sure, number one, you're looking at the right property, right, relative to all the gathered information. We take all this public data and we just put it on our website. For the most part, it's correct. The county data and the public information is correct. Occasionally, we find things that don't quite match the right way. And then we'll let the county know, and if we can correct it, we will. But you're going to want to look at the deed, make sure you're looking at an identification somehow, tax map parcel, maybe a street address, and then you really want to look for what we call a Schedule A. Schedule A is where the property gets a description of the actual boundary of the property. Now, this is good information for you to verify the size of the property. These things are a little mind-bending to read at first. It's a lot of vents and westerlies and numbers and which direction to go. But if you were to look at an actual survey map, I'm not talking a tax map. Tax map is just a drawing. Survey map means somebody actually went out there and started somewhere, that place of the beginning, and they actually went these distances in these directions back to, in the last sentence, the place of beginning. And they make mention of that and write it out in this narrative. They also usually give you then a summary of, like here, containing 44.9 acres, more or less. So, you know, this Schedule A doesn't match what I was showing you on the 1.2 acres, but it was a good description to let you know what these things look like. Also in the Schedule A, and certainly in the deed, you may find reference to access to property, things that we call a right of way, or ROW, or something called an easement. And I'll cover that a little bit more in the talk and why those things may be important to you. So, do you do the title search yourself or hire a professional? That's entirely up to you. You're going to want to make sure that you definitely look for IRS liens. You want to make sure that the individuals that are being foreclosed on do not also have the IRS after them. Why? Because the IRS lien lasts for 10 years. So they may have a deed, they may have a lien filed against them and any property they own. That's how it works. That lives for a 10-year period. Also, the IRS lien can be extended an additional 10-year period. So, you know, we're looking at maybe 20-year IRS lien. The good news is, as long as the IRS was notified as an interested party, their lien will also be wiped away. However, they have a special time frame. They have 180 days going forward from the date of the auction to buy the property from you once you become the titled owner. They can buy it from you. They will buy it from you because you must sell it to them. And it's going to be for exactly what you paid, all the fees, all the closings, any commission, any recording, and there's no profit opportunity for you. So you're going to want to make sure if you see in your search that there is an IRS lien, you're going to want to make sure that the county actually notified them. And then the other good news is once you take title and you know they were notified, then you can ask the IRS to actually give you what's called an unconditional lien release. And you do that through contacting the Rochester office of the IRS. And you'll get typically a one-page letter that they release their interest in the property. So I just zoomed in on this one a little bit. You know, you'll notice that on the left side, this is a 1040 lien, right? They owed income tax. It talks about when is the last day to refile the lien to keep it alive. And yowza, look at this. They owe $792,000 in income tax. So, you know, even if you buy a property like this, as long as they were notified, it's not a worry. And we actually sold a property in one county that was an acre with a mobile home on it that was just a derelict mobile home. And it had I think it was $1.2 million IRS lien against that individual. But it sold at auction. The buyers were happy. They know that the IRS was notified, and they got an unconditional lien release. Remember, all property is local. So that means there are some additional local rules within the county that affect these properties. And we're going to talk about town codes. There may be village taxes, water and sewer charges that are not wiped away from this. And you're going to want to look into schools. So, you know, there's a lot of good information that you're going to discover along the way. And sadly, we're not quite done yet, but we're making good progress. So real estate being local, you're going to want to look for closed sales of recent transactions of nearby property. And you want to compare apples to apples. You don't want to really mix property types in trying to gain estimations of value. So you might want to consider getting a paid appraisal. You may want to consider working with a realtor. You may want to, do any number of things, but if you're going to work with a professional, consider that you're going to probably have to pay for that information. The reason why you might want to work with them is also getting some guidance on professionals who can help you do some upgrades or repairs on these properties. Now, there is free information available for you by going and looking at sold information on places like Realtor.com, Zillow, Trulia, Redfin. There's a whole bunch of them. They do have for sale prices, and that's all wishful thinking. Who knows what it's actually going to sell for? That's why we tell you to look at sold information and try and make sure that information is relatively new. Your local newspapers and whatnot, they also have property for sale, and they have good information too. But make sure you're comparing like-kind properties. These are all structures, they're all residential, but they are certainly different. Same thing with looking at land. When you're looking at land on our website, are these all the same? They're kind of similar, if you will, but you really don't know until you dig into the details how big these things really are. And you'll notice on the left, the one that's 115 feet or so, it doesn't look much smaller than the one that's actually 62 acres. So an informed buyer really knows best. So make sure that you do your homework and understand what it is you're bidding on. If you're looking at improved property that needs repairs, you may want to start getting some additional information from professional sources and getting those people to help give you maybe a pre-auction estimate of what the repair would be should you become the buyer. Check references. If you ask a professional for advice, the advice is not always free, and you may have to pay for that. And keep in mind, free is not always best. Sometime you'll run into a neighbor looking at the property, wondering what you're looking at, and you may ask them, hey, what do you know about this house, or what do you know about this land? The neighbor may not be 100% truthful because they're actually interested in the property. Make sure you ask the tough questions now, up front. If you see property that has caution tape on it, or the windows have violation stickers in them, or you actually see things like, that outlet box, you're going to want to find out, zoning, code violations, that kind of stuff in advance of bidding. So zoning, very quickly, zoning talks about how a property can be used. So local municipalities, town level, village level, right? Those are the municipalities that are going to determine how can you use this property. If you look at a zoning map, your entire area is cut into different zones where you could do residential development, you might do agricultural, you might do commercial. You may want to take a look at that. Can zoning be modified or changed? Sure, there's a zoning board of appeals. You may find that you need 5 acres to build a house, and you just bought property that's 4.9 acres. Well, technically, you're too small to build, but you might be able to appeal that and say, I really want to become a taxpayer here and build something. Can you give me a modification of the zoning to allow me to do that? Building codes, on the other hand, talk about design, construction, maintenance, alteration. These are things meant that if you're going to have improvements, that they meet certain safety requirements. So there's the federal HUD code that decides, this is the basic parameter that structures must meet. But then there's a New York State building code, which is more stringent. And then, of course, on your local level, that's what you're going to really be concerned with, the local building code, and making sure that the stairs are adequate or making sure the building is safe. This is more of a safety issue. And we suggest you call the code compliance department now and say, hey, what do you know about that house I'm thinking about buying at the auction? Does it have outstanding code violations? Are there things I'm going to have to deal with in order to be able to use this property? So you're going to want to make some phone calls in advance and introduce yourself as a potential buyer. By the way, Florida has the strictest building codes because of the prevalence of hurricane. And so they have to have very robust roofing systems and wall systems in place. While you're talking to the town or the village, you're going to want to find out about municipal water, sewer, maybe gas service. Is there telephone and cable nearby? If you're looking at private property, privately owned, is there a well? How deep is it? How many gallons a minute? Sometimes that information is known by the assessor in the town. Sometimes you're going to have to go to the county to find out. Is there septic there? Do they have below tanks gas service underneath, buried LP tanks? And again, asking a lot of questions up front makes it very helpful to be an informed buyer. If schools are important to you, you're going to want to visit the New York State Ed Department, nysed.gov, and they have something called the school district, I think it's called the report card, New York Schools Report Card. It's an amazing amount of information that you could look right down very granularly on a particular school district and see what their graduation rates are. How many people are going on to college or not? Do they have advanced placement courses? Do they have foreign language, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera? If that's information that you're interested in, nysed.gov is a huge and great resource. So make sure you get your questions answered before bidding. At auction, when you bid, you're telling everybody, I'm ready to buy. So what else do you need to get ready? You need to get your finances ready. At auction, we will require a down payment according to the terms and conditions of sale, and we'll talk about that in just a minute. There is a down payment required at the auction. Since this auction is entirely online, those down payments are going to be in the form of either a credit or a debit card. After auction, once you are the high bidder, these properties in Lewis County must be fully paid for and close the transaction within 30 days of the auction. There are no contingencies allowed. There's no financing options. There are no post-auction inspections. There's no excuses. If you're the high bidder, the county expects that you will become the buyer, finish paying, and take your deed and take title to the property. It's very simple. We do accept debit and credit. And there are 3 cards that we accept, either Discover, Visa, or MasterCard. That's what our service provider accepts, and we do too. We suggest, and this is extremely important, that you call the 800 or so number that's on that credit or debit card and tell them you expect to buy property November 5th. You're going to use this card as a down payment, and I'll tell you how much the down payment is in just a minute and how you can figure that out. While you have them on the phone, it's going to take you a minute to get to a live person, but while you're on the phone, tell them to please put into the computer, this is a real estate purchase on November 5th, and that you're potentially buying real estate, so that when we actually process your transaction, when you're done bidding, the credit card company already knows, yeah, this is all good. Yep, it was set up and it'll go through. The challenge is when your credit card is declined, then we have to get a hold of you, and you have to try and now start calling your bank, and it can be time consuming. And ultimately, if you can't resolve it, the county may just say, hey, don't sell it to them, sell it to the other person who is bidding. So make sure your debit and credit card are ready to go. This is the #1 issue people are having challenges with because they don't make the call. Call your bank, tell them you're buying real estate. And also confirm that they're putting this into the file for you. So what else is happening? What's your bidding strategy? Are you going to be a very strategic bidder? You're just kind of going to throw numbers at the wall? You're a risky buyer. There are a number of different strategies, but keep in mind, everybody that's bidding at the auction has looked into the properties. They're ready to buy, and waiting for it to go down to $1 doesn't make sense. So for example, if I were to sell a $100 bill, new legal tender, United States tender, and I ask for $100, most of you are not going to raise your hand. But if I say, would you give me 80 for it? Somebody may raise their hand, maybe not. If I say, would you give me 50 for a $100 bill? Likely a bunch of you are going to raise your hand, and then the bidding just goes. But do you really expect it to go down to $1? At $1, everybody wants it. The challenge with waiting for everybody to want it, including people who didn't want it, is that now you have to outbid others to become the high bidder. And that means you always pay more. So we're going to suggest to you that you bid soon in the auction and bid real in the auction. You know, maybe not your top bid, we get that, but bid something that's pretty strong and allows you to show other buyers that you're serious. The other thing we've noticed is bidding delays do not work. In the online bidding platform that we're going to show you here tonight, you know, once you bid, the clock runs an additional 2 minutes. So if somebody else bids, it pushes another 2 minutes. So the clock from 2 minutes is counting down. If nobody bids in 2 minutes, then the bidding ends, you're the high bidder. What we're finding is that people are waiting for it to go down to 5 seconds, 2 seconds, and hurry up and bid again. I don't know what they're hoping the other person did, because the other person's right there watching the clock just like you are. So it just takes a long time to finish bidding when you really don't need to wait that long. You know, if you're intending to bid more than what you see and you're not the high bidder, push the button, become the high bidder. And the other person does the same thing, and we just get to where we're supposed to end up eventually. But don't waste time. Sometimes I think what happens is that by waiting, you just aggravate the other person. And they may have thought about giving up, but they're also thinking, you know what, I'm not letting you win either. So strength wins at the auction. Just some last thoughts. Get in early, know where you want to go and get there, and you know, don't even be afraid to jump the bid to a higher amount. So let's get into the actual auction process. Oh, before we do, one other thing. Of course, everybody would like to buy property like this. I'd love to have property like this. There's a problem with this, though. Might not have road frontage. You'll notice in our website and the descriptions, we say may not have road frontage. What does that really mean? In practical sense, the property may not touch anything on a roadway. So here's a subdivision map on the left side that shows this parcel as it appears in a planned subdivision. You might be, oh, that's cool, nice corner parcel. Corner parcels usually bring more money. There are roads all around. Here's a zoomed in, right? It's on Ivy and Arbutus, right on the corner. It's 100 feet by 100 feet. When we jump up into the hot air balloon and take a picture looking down, this is what it is. This property is just woods. Yes, on paper it's a subdivision. Yes, there may be a road there someday, but right now there's no road. So when we talk about road frontage, we're typically talking about a paved road or a maintained road. You know, it could be a dirt road that's maintained, but typically something that is actually in existence that you could drive on. So when we say no road frontage, be careful, make sure that you're looking in the deed to gain access. And how do you do that? You want to look at the deed and find out, number one, is there an ROW, a right-of-way? Right-of-way is a way for you to make access and use it over someone else's property. So you can actually put in a driveway. Usually the right-of-way specifies how much of that other property you get to use. You know, a 25-foot right-of-way, 10-foot right-of-way, something that allows you to maybe put in a driveway. A different legal phrase, easement, means you have the right to use it, but you can just go over it. You can't build anything there. There's no driveways. There's nothing you could do other than just go over it. We see this kind of often easements like in lakefront properties where, you know, you're not on the lake, but you have an easement. You have a way to get to the lake. You have 15 feet along the left side of somebody else's property to walk down there, carry your canoe or kayak down, enjoy the water. This is why you want to go back and read deeds and make sure that you're looking at property. So let's get you ready to go. You're going to have to get yourself prepared to actually participate in the auction. So there's a registration process that we've put together, and we actually were working on this last year over the winter, preparing, unbeknownst to us, that we would have to actually use this system as much as we are this year. You're going to register by becoming a member of our site. So when you go to aarauctions.com, the first thing you're going to want to do is become a member. Get a username, get a password. That's you. Then you're going to want to register for the auction. We have many auctions going on. We have real estate auctions for counties. We have individuals selling property at auction. We have trucks and cars and house contents at auction. Those are all individual auctions. And you're going to have to register for those individual sales, if you will. So go into the Lewis area and say that you want to complete the internet bidding packet. Once you register for the auction, you're going to get an email from us that actually gives you a link to let you electronically sign or electronically acknowledge all of the forms necessary to register. So you can look at the internet information there, the bid packet, look at the forms, maybe familiarize yourself ahead of time. But once you're ready to go, we'll send you a link that actually lets you fulfill the steps of registration. You'll want to gather your driver's license, so you can put in your driver's license number. We will accept a passport. Sometimes we have used a military or state ID, but you're going to want to make sure that the information is a positive proof identification of who you are. If you have a question, just throw it in with Jenny and let Jen maybe answer it for you, or at the end, if I didn't cover something well enough, we can review questions and I'll be happy to go back over it. So the first thing you'll do is do identification of who you are. You'll also be acknowledging things like the New York State on the left agency disclosure form. It tells you we work for this seller. You'll also have an opportunity to download the lead paint booklet. There's a link on our website for that. You'll also be acknowledging the lead paint statement, where the county says they don't know about lead paint in and on any of these properties. So first, with the agency disclosure, you see that we are an agent of the seller. Next, lead paint. County tells you they don't know about lead paint because they've done no testing whatsoever. We've given you the opportunity to get a booklet. You're also saying that you're not going to use 10 days to do lead paint testing in order to back out of the transaction. This property is coming to you the way it is, no matter how it is. And then you're going to acknowledge that property, that form. Ag district. Some properties may be in an agricultural district, meaning they're officially considered ag property. How do you know? It's designated on the tax map as ag property. And you're going to acknowledge that you did your homework and you know what you're buying. Also, there's a fair housing notice this year that went into effect, and you're going to acknowledge receipt of the notice regarding fair housing. Everyone will do that. Now, if you're registering individually, it's pretty simple. You know your name and social security number. If you're registering as an LLC, right, an incorporated entity, you're going to need proof that the LLC actually lives, it exists. And what we're asking for is a filing receipt. Filing receipt looks like this, at least it does in New York State, and it provides us with an idea of when that actual LLC was incorporated and the actual names and all of that kind of stuff. There's a new form that came out recently in New York State this past year. The full form now has to be used, and that is an ownership disclosure form. We have that built into our bid packet. I'll show it to you in a second. We're also going to need a corporate resolution authorizing the person to bid. So where do you get some of this information? Well, it came either in the legal book that you received from your attorney if they created the LLC for you, but many of you are now using LegalZoom or similar services to incorporate on your own. You'll get the book in the mail. My son incorporated and he received all of this information in the mail. So you have it somewhere, either check with your attorney or check in your household somewhere. Here's this new Corp Identification. Percentages of ownership in this LLC must equal 100%. If you're a single person LLC, it's simple, but if you have several partners, everybody has to provide their information and their tax ID, which is their social security number. It must total 100%. Also with an LLC, you'll get what's called an EIN number, right? That's kind of a social security number for companies. It's 2 numbers, a dash, and then a sequence of numbers after that. You'll need this form to prove that you have an EIN number, and that's usually in your LLC kit. If you happen to be bidding for someone else and they're not a married spouse, you're going to need limited power of attorney. And we have a copy right on our website. You can download a free copy of the new long form limited power of attorney form. This will need you to go and appear, though, before a public notary who's going to notarize your signature in person and provide notary stamp. Everything else up to this point, you didn't need to do in front of anybody. You could do it at home. We've made it an entirely electronic registration system. So now that you're fully registered and you're ready to go, and you think you know all the information you need to know about the property, do you still feel like this guy? Like everything's stacked against you, trying to buy real estate? Well, the beautiful thing about auction is that we have what's called terms and conditions. Terms and conditions means that all the buyer's offers are equal. The only difference is what is the actual dollar amount bid. So if you look at the terms and conditions that Lewis County created, and they're similar to the other counties that we do around the state, this is the way that Lewis County agrees to sell property to you. And you, when you acknowledge it, you agree to perform all these steps in order to buy property. So read it carefully, make sure you take notes. If you don't understand as it goes along, make sure you ask the right questions. You may need to call a county office to understand what they're saying. You may need to ask an attorney, what does this really mean? If you don't understand the terms and conditions, just don't bid. Just watch this year, see how the auction goes. You can watch online without bidding, without registering. But the educated buyer is our best customer. The educated buyer meaning people who did their homework and the people who fully understand terms and conditions. We're not going to read these to you. You could read them yourself, but we do want to highlight a few key things. One, everybody has to register. That's simple. And provide that ID that we mentioned recently. And you're going to do that this year through the Internet Bidder Registration Packet. These dates that are in here are incorrect. These were contemplating the auction earlier in the year. Your paperwork will actually have the correct information in it. So the purchaser is responsible for a buyer's premium, a commission in the form of a buyer's premium, and it's published at 11%. So the buyer is paying the commission to the broker auctioneers on top of the purchase amount. The buyer is also going to be responsible for the 2021 school bill and any additional tax bills that come out after the closing and the property is yours. So in the future, yes, you will owe county and town tax, you'll owe school tax, etc. These are not tax-free properties in the future. People sometimes ask us that, no, you're going to pay the tax going forward. You're also going to pay any past due water and sewer bill. So if there's public water, public sewer servicing a property that you're interested in, ask the township or village, what is that outstanding bill? You're going to have to pay that. Those are never wiped away in this process. Some additional terms, $1,000 or 20% of what we call the contract price is used as a down payment at the auction. One of the wonderful things that we've also developed for you this year is a down payment calculator. That's on our website. It's next and near to every property you're looking at. So you could just do I'll give you a sample in just a minute, but you're going to be able to actually calculate this amount based on what you think you may pay for the property. According to the terms at the auction, once you're the high bidder, your deposit will be the greater of either $1,000 or 20% of whatever the contract price is. Contract is what you bid plus the commission together. Take 20% of that. And I'll show you a written example in just a minute. The entire balance, after you're done bidding and being actually declared and approved as the high bidder, is due in 30 days after the auction. And you'll make arrangements directly with Lewis County Treasurer's Office to do that. They'll take cash, cashier's check, or money order. They are not equipped to accept credit or debit cards after the auction. We're the only ones able to accept debit and credit cards right now here at the auction. So the balance is due 30 days later. I did mention if you're approved. What does that mean? The county doesn't have minimum bids, but what they do reserve the right to do is review the high bidders, the people who potentially will become the buyers, and make sure that you do not currently owe them real property tax. The county has to approve these sales. So don't owe tax. If you owe tax, you must clear that up before you intend to bid and buy at the auction. Also, they talk about a quick claim deed. These properties come to you in the simplest form of title transfer, which is a quick claim deed. The title, meaning the ownership of the property, is yours. In New York State, the law says upon the recording of the deed. So even on auction day, should you, let's say you buy a property for $500 and you pay in full, it's still not yours. It needs to be approved by the county, right, relative to you maybe being a delinquent taxpayer or not. But it also then needs to be recorded. So the county will let us know, typically all the bids are approved. We will then begin printing the deed paperwork for the county. And then once you pay and they file the deed, it's yours. And all properties are sold as is, where is. Down in number 8, I didn't highlight it for you. There are some additional closing costs for New York State and local, and you'll be paying those as part of the buyer. What else? All sales, once they're recorded, are final and absolute, and they have no recourse. So the former owner of the property can't come back and try and get the property back from you. The bank that had a mortgage that got wiped away by this process, they can't come after you as long as they were notified, right? The IRS, nobody can come after you. These are absolute and final sales. Some properties, they reiterate, might be ag property. Make sure you know what you're buying. And then once you acknowledge the terms and conditions by doing the electronic signature, then you're saying, yep, I understand how I'm going to go about buying and paying for these properties. This is a real estate auction. No personal property is included. So just real estate is being conveyed to you. If you find that you buy, let's say, improved property, or there's vacant land with a tractor on it, you're going to want to make sure that you try and contact the former owner to come and get their personal property. Maybe empty the house or take away that car if those things are there. You may need an attorney to actually help you structure that correspondence and how to actually go about reaching the former owner of the property. We can't advise you. We're not lawyers. We're just suggesting, though, that you make an attempt to reach out to the former owner of the property. And remember, the IRS has, that extra 180 days. So you're going to want to make sure that they were notified. If there are any evictions necessary, it's your responsibility as the buyer once you become the titled owner of the property. And here again, you may want to check and make sure that the statewide executive order on evictions is something that you're complying with. So there are some time frames there. Again, I'm not an attorney to let you know what that is or how that works, but we're just cautioning you that for eviction, you're going to have to follow what is now the state guidelines. The purchaser may not assign the right to bid. So if you're the high bidder, between the time you bid and the time you close, you can't sell it to somebody else and then make them finish paying and closing. That's not how it works. The way you register is the way the deed is printed. That's how this transaction finishes out. So, if your name and your spouse's name should be on the deed, register that way. Make sure that you understand how you're going to finish this out. We talked about IRS enough. Here's just a quick view of our website. This is what the bidding platform looks like. This one I just snapped off of yesterday's auction in Sullivan County. Once you get into the bidder applet and you've entered your password and your username, you'll get inside to be able to bid. And you notice that on top, properties are being sold. There could be as many as 3, maybe even 4 on occasion, properties being sold at one time, depending on how many people continue bidding. So you notice lot number 296 in the upper left, that had constant extensions of 2 minutes, and the lots 297 sold. 298, 299. They were also within their closing time frame, but kept getting extensions. You notice down at the bottom, we're showing you what's coming up. And everything always shows up in numerical order, the way it appeared on the website, and the way we're going to do everything in a nice, simple, straightforward program. Talk about down payments in a second, how to figure that out. You'll do a simple contracted payment, which you'll get by email from us. Remember, Visa, MasterCard, Discover. It's important to figure out how you're going to do that. And maybe before you call them, so you have an idea of how much of a down payment you may be using on that credit card, go to the part of our website that has the down payment calculator, and then click the location, right? You want to go to Lewis County, type in your bid amount, $50,000, and hit calculate. In order to bid $50,000, you need to have a credit or debit card that's good for $11,100. So that's what you need right at the auction. The balance is due at closing in those next 30 days. So we hope you bid $50,000 on every property. Remember, the more you pay, the better it is, maybe. But also, what if you buy very, low value property? What if you're buying property that's worth $200? The minimum requirement is up to $1,000 deposit. So you'll clearly pay the $200 in full. You'll pay the buyer's premium, $20, right, or $22 because it's a credit or debit card. And then you'll also pay probably some closing costs, if not all closing costs, up to a total of $1,000. So if you bid on $200 property, it's likely you're just going to pay in full on your credit card and wait for a deed to come in the mail. The contract of sale, just a one-page document. It's very straightforward. If you look closely at the bottom, it talks about the down payments, the commissions. It has all the numbers that you need to know, including any filing fees, etc. This is just an example. Don't get fixated on the numbers. But it'll tell you the correct balance due date, 30 days post-auction. And the line there, time is of the essence, that is a legal phrase. That means the clock is ticking. So you're going to have 30 days from the date of the auction to finish paying Lewis County Treasurer's Office for these properties. There are a couple of additional required forms. New York State TP 584 and the 5217. These are statewide forms that you're going to also execute, and this records in the statewide database, who the new owner is, what was paid, transfer taxes, etc. And then the quitclaim deed is going to be sent to you by mail, simplest form of title transfer, and remember, it's not yours until it's recorded. And the deeds typically look like this, usually one page. This one from Sullivan County puts a bunch of information in it, but it's very simple, very straightforward, and you'll get a deed copy that the property is yours. So after you do all your homework, you still may want to talk to an attorney, you still may want to talk to your tax professional, you may want to get professional advice. Certainly we recommend you follow any additional steps recommended by paid professionals. So remember, bidding is going to begin soon to those who are fully registered, and you'll be able to do some online bidding in advance of Thursday, November 5th. You certainly want to be at your computer at 10 a.m. so that you can enter any additional bids if you've entered some already, and make sure you can continue competing for property. But you're definitely going to want to make sure that you're prepared. Call your credit card company, get yourself totally prepared and ready to go. So with that said, I know Jen was very busy in the background answering questions, and there are different questions. Let me just look at the one Q&A that maybe is posted. So how do you notice that the lien holders have been notified, properly notified by the county? You're going to do that through the treasurer's office. You're going to want to reach out to the treasurer's office once you know who the lien holders are. That's when you contact them and say, who did you notify? And if they notified the bank and a hospital and a roofer, and you found that there was a lien by a bank and a hospital and a roofer and they match, then the liens are satisfied in terms of being notified and they're not your issue. So that's important. Jen, let me ask you to turn on your microphone and maybe let me know if there's any extra questions that I missed.
I think I got them all. There was a question about the IRS liens.
Okay. Yeah, I thought we covered IRS pretty well. IRS is simply a lien holder like everybody else. And the important consideration is one, you need to find if there is an IRS lien. And, you know, I'll be honest with you, usually in the course of a year where we sell almost 2,000 properties, maybe we see 10 IRS liens throughout the entire year. That's probably about it. Usually less. So the likelihood that you're going to run into an IRS lien is very remote. That said, we want you to look for it. We don't want you to be surprised. And then as long as the IRS, if there is one, was notified, they're like everybody else. They can go away too. You know, keep in mind, they have 180 days from the date of the auction. So you have to finish paying within 30 days. That means the IRS has an additional period of time to come to you and you know, make you force you to sell them the property. I'm going to be honest with you. I haven't heard of that yet in 20 years. I've never heard of any buyer saying, hey, you remember what I bought last year and the IRS made me sell it to them? I haven't heard anybody do that yet. So I don't think that's a really big concern, but we just want to make you aware of it, because if you don't know about it, we don't want you to be surprised. Hopefully, we finally covered the IRS. Anything else, Jen?
I was able to answer everyone else. In case anybody else has a question about using multiple credit cards, we can take multiple credit cards. The bidder packet has 2 spots in it that you can fill it out to provide us 2 credit cards when you initially register. If you're looking to use more, you can send us an email or give us a call and request another credit card form to be added to your bidder packet. We can definitely take care of that for you. And we'll start by using the first credit card on there and move through them for your deposits. And we can always call you to clarify how much you want charged per credit card.
Yeah, I'm sure Jen has answered all your questions in the background. She's really good about being able to keep up and give you accurate information in the background. Jen, I appreciate you being with me tonight and doing that work.
Absolutely. One last thing I'll add, because I definitely think we've covered all the questions unless some more come in.
Okay.
If you have not received the link for the bidder packet, we are going to send out another email as a follow-up, include the link for you, and we will make sure that you get the paperwork and can register. Doing it through DocuSign is your best option. Otherwise, you have to get the paperwork notarized. We cannot accept paperwork that you print out that you do not get notarized. It either has to be through the DocuSign link or done with a notary.
And do this soon. You know, don't wait to the day before the auction to try and register, or the morning of. You know, let's be honest, you know, the people that are registered and ready to go, they're going to be given preference and we're going to want to work with them. So, you know, don't wait. You know, you can request that information tonight, tomorrow, over the weekend. You know, get yourself together. We're doing this bidder seminar, a couple of weeks before the auction? Mm-hmm. So you have plenty of time. Just get it started now. Get yourself queued up and be totally ready.
Yep, I recommend, if you have not already done so, make sure you register for the auction on our website. And if you don't get the link, even though it's probably in your spam, we will be sending it through another email source to make sure that you get the link. And I'm going to see if we can get that out tomorrow to anybody that is missing the link and hasn't gotten to the paperwork yet.
That's a good point. And also on your end, folks who are receiving our email, check your spam filter or check your junk mail, because you may have a firewall that doesn't recognize us or the service we use to send you that information. Mm-hmm. So our message may be there and it may be just in your junk or spam folder.
Perfect.
Good. Any other questions?
Looks like we're all set, Frank.
Yeah, I think we have it covered. First of all, we want to thank you for spending time with us tonight. We hope you found this to be informative and educational and give you confidence to be a happy buyer and an educated bidder. You know, we realize that for most of you, you're only doing this once in your life, so it could seem kind of different. But, you know, it's very straightforward. Be comfortable with the system. It works really well. Everything we do is very transparent. So you could have confidence in working with us and buying property from Lewis County. In the meantime, make sure you go take a look on the website. Again, the interior videos and photos, everything is there for you to see. You're certainly welcome to go visit property, driving by, you know, seeing it from the outside and, you know, taking a look. Keep in mind, again, if you talk to neighbors, you may not always get 100% accurate detail. But with all of that said, we want to thank you for tonight. Thanks for participating in the auction. We want to congratulate in advance those of you who become Lewis County property owners. And until we can meet in person, which we hope again is very soon, we want to wish you happiness and wellness. Thank you for spending your time with us tonight. Good night.